Fantastic. Look, thank you everybody for joining us today. Really excited to obviously jump on the call and share with you some of the updates within the industry. Just by way of introduction, so my name's Liam. I'm the Executive Director of RxTro, which is an online tool for managing your in-clinic education. And today I'm joined by Jason, CEO of Halo Connect. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you very much, Liam. Pleasure to be here.
Fantastic. So look, topic for today, looking at some recent updates in the IT landscape within primary care. Just by way of sort of our background and our experience, having operated in this environment for the last 10 years, we've been a silver integration partner with Best Practice since 2014. It's been a really key feature of the software that, quite frankly, we weren't really in a position to promote in a really big way. It was something that when clinics specifically asked for the integration, it was something that we were happy to make available. But what we tended to see was that the challenges with dealing with either on-premise or individual cloud-based servers and the maintenance level that was involved with that meant that it was a significant cost for the business, just in terms of somebody's changed servers, somebody's reset the password, somebody's done something, and it meant that basically we had people that were spending a lot of time just on TeamViewer, on servers, really maintaining things. So look, probably around sort of 12 to 18 months ago, heard about the initiative with Halo and Jason, and as an IT partner, having struggled with these challenges, really excited about the way forward and what Halo are doing. So wanted to obviously introduce this to our audience, let you guys know about the updates, and we really see it as something that now going forward, really in a big position to promote the fact that RxTro integrates with Best Practice. So obviously, being the expert, I might hand over to Jason, who's knows a lot more about it than me. So Jason, yeah, if you can walk us through Halo.
Yeah, sure thing. You say expert, I'll give you a little bit of info about my background. So I don't have a technical background at all. I guess I've spent about 10 or 12 years working in sort of hospital management and clinical redesign. So firstly for external consultancy, and then joining Queensland Health sort of about 8 years ago, helping manage some of the statewide access improvement programs for surgery and outpatients through the Queensland Health Healthcare Improvement Unit, and then ended up at the Kids Hospital here in Brizzy for about 5 years. We're doing a number of projects, sort of massive patient flow redesign project, managing the PMO for COVID, which I wouldn't have said was much fun. It might have been the trigger for me getting out of Queensland Health eventually. But then some other just 10-year forward planning for the health service and things like that. So it was an awesome time working at the Kids Hospital. I loved every minute of it outside of COVID. So yeah, interesting not having a technical background and then coming and trying to, I guess, spruik an invisible product that really is just sort of internet services making things easier for everyone's lives. So yeah, I come with a sort of real layman's approach to this as well. So if there's some super technical questions towards the end, I'm happy to take them on notice and provide them back via Liam as well. So I'll get cracking. So where did Halo Connect come from? Well, our founder, Chris, was a practice manager at a rather large GP practice in Brisbane, and often felt like this, trying to get any information in and out of the system that he was using. And the server itself was often on fire, figuratively, having to be reset during the middle of the day, crashing, all kinds of things that really sort of disrupted the clinical care. So he had a bit of a vision, I should say, for what the future of those kinds of third-party integrations and kind of the server management stuff for on-prem could look like. And that's really where the idea for Halo Connect came from. This is, as sort of Liam alluded to, this is a little bit of a typical on-prem server in a medical center where you have lots of different database agents and bits of software sitting on your server that help integrate a whole range of things, whether that's for your appointment booking or telehealth or billing, things like your imaging and pathology, secure messaging, all those kinds of things. They all sort of, every third-party integrator needs to go and install some piece of software either on your backend server or on the desktops themselves in order for you to have that software integrated. And that also obviously has a lot of issues. Some of them are really old and insecure, haven't been updated in 5 years and sort of introduce a whole lot of vulnerabilities. Some of them historically have required you to hand over your admin credentials for the server, which is a very bad security practice, and BP has really cracked down on those types of things in the recent past. So where Halo comes in is really there's two main bits of technology that we're using. One is a sort of single database connector. So the Halo Link agent is the one that gets installed on your server and can sort of replace all of these other third-party integrators' bits of software. And for the third parties, then we have a set of APIs which they can talk to. So essentially the integrator software just talks to us in the cloud. We take that and read and write back and forth with the server itself. So there's a lot of benefits with that model. For the practice itself, it does improve the security and the privacy of your data. So we have a sort of very specific privacy and security model that we've worked with BP on, and it's of a very high standard that not all of the other integrations would have met previously. It does require then that burden on the server itself, so you're not trying to run 16 different agents all competing for resources and some of them crashing the server and those kinds of things. So it's a sort of very well-behaved agent that has its own queuing and rate limiting and kind of protects that server. It makes it really easy for you if you want to purchase some software from a third party, whether that's a chronic disease management bit of software or something like RxTro, or software analytics about your practice. You can essentially just turn them on with one click in the third-party integration screen. And if they're connected via Halo, they can just start reading and writing from the database immediately. So you don't go through this 2-week cycle of working with your IT provider to get something installed and working. And it also sort of lowers that barrier to entry. So for a lot of the third-party integrators, as Liam alluded to, it's a really high barrier to kind of develop your own bit of software that runs on every server. You have to support that, so you have to have a support team that manages those connections constantly, and that's expensive, and it's expensive to upfront cost, and it's an expensive ongoing cost. So there's actually much fewer integrations available than what we're hoping this will bring to light. If we sort of take this pain point away for a lot of integrators and make it much cheaper, you should start seeing a lot more integrated tools. For integrators, it's sort of very similar, but the inverse benefits. So really it helps them just focus on their product, making their product amazing, not worrying about that sort of local database sync and having to create that local database agent. It simplifies support for them. So really it comes down to is their product connecting to the database, yes or no? If no, that's our support. We take care of that and we do that proactively. So we monitor all the instances of Halo Link out there, and as soon as we see a problem with a connection to a practice, we're contacting that practice and the IT provider and getting that resolved. So the integrator never has to. It does enable rapid growth. So I think we're in sort of closing in on 5,000 practices at the moment for Halo Link. So if I'm an integrator and I show up to practice X and they decide they want to use my product, they can turn that on immediately and we just go. And as I said before, we have a really, set security encryption model as well that is really safe, secure, and reliable. So while the data is in transit, you know that it's always going to be encrypted. I will just quickly touch on our privacy and security model, just the highlights of it. So Halo itself doesn't actually have any data access to your database with our credentials. We are a BP partner. We have a set of credentials. It really just allows us to get the practice name and the BP ID and a couple of bits of identifying information that we need to know which practice it is. So everything that we execute is on behalf of an integrator using their database credentials that they've been provided by BP. So they, pass queries to the database, we return results to them, and we don't inspect any of that. So we have no idea what data they're requesting. We have no idea what data they're getting back. It's all based on their access credentials provided to them by BP. And we just collect some very minimal metadata that we use for billing and analytics. So sort of who sent the query, when did they send it, how big was it, those types of information. So there's nothing identifiable in any of that. In terms of security, we don't store any of the data that's sent or returned. So as soon as we hand it back to an integrator, it gets wiped and we never see it. We're not sort of accumulating any history of all the data that's been transferred. It's all encrypted during transit. It does use, I guess, different sort of a layered authorization model. So for an integrator to be able to use Halo Connect, they need to be part of the BP partner program, and BP has to have given them a set of credentials and a set of permissions of what they can and can't do on the database. Halo has to have given them an API subscription key, and they need to have the right subscription key and be coming from the right IP address to query with us. And you as a practice need to have enabled them in your practice as well. So sort of 3 different elements around the authorization that all come together to make it really secure. Just touch real quickly on in that last aspect of you enabling an integrator in your practice. So ultimately, it's up to you whether anyone can use Halo Connect to transfer data back and forth from your practice. And for those integrators that are using Halo, you can enable them the same way you would enable anybody else. So in the setup and config in databases, there's a managed third-party integrations. And if you tick them in there, they can start querying your practice through Halo. I won't harp on this too long, but just to say that our APIs are designed to work both across BP Premier and BP Omni, which is their cloud product that's been in development for a while. I'll go into a little bit more detail. So we have 2 different sort of buckets of API products. The first is what we call a SQL pass-through. The only thing you need to know about that is kind of it's designed for all the existing integrators. So I think there's a good ecosystem of 50+ third-party integrations with best practice. They've gone through a lot of effort to date to figure out the custom SQL that they need to use and the stored procedures that they call to get the data out of the database. And this really is just a simple way for them to transition over to using a Halo API that just accepts all of that. We are also developing a FHIR API. FHIR is a somewhat new standard in healthcare for data transfer, and we're really aligning to that standard so that we're not creating something custom that's siloed away that will only work with best practice. And the idea for these APIs is that you don't need to know anything about the database if you want to integrate with them. So you kind of get an API spec that says, if you want to book an appointment, here's the information you need to send us, and here's what you'll get back in return. And these APIs are the ones that are going to work both across BP Premier and BP Omni. So in the future, if you're considering upgrading to BP's cloud offering, the idea is that all of your third-party integrations would automatically come with that. There wouldn't be the need for them to rebuild and connect and do something different for Omni. Halo kind of takes care of that for them. Just very quickly on what actually gets installed on your server at a practice from the Halo perspective. So we have the Halo Link service, which is a Windows service that really just talks to our API and says, what's the next query that I need to run? It executes that, returns that back to the API. We do have a little scheduled task that just checks if the service has been stopped. And this can happen when there's a sort of server reboot or something happens and the Halo Link service doesn't automatically reboot itself. And this just checks if it isn't running and restarts it. And we also have an updater service that just every 15 minutes checks for the most recent version of Halo Link. If there's a new version out there, it downloads it and installs it. So we kind of take care of all the updating for you. New versions of Halo Link are also included in every monthly data update from best practice. So for some reason, if the updater wasn't running or you'd turned it off or anything like that, the monthly data update is going to still give you the most recent version of Halo Link. Good news is you don't need to do much to install it. So as I said, we're kind of already closing in on 5,000 practices. It is bundled with every monthly data update from best practice and every service pack release as well. As long as your practice has met our minimum requirements, then it'll just auto install. And as I mentioned as well, it'll auto update. If you have a really hawkish IT provider who's locked everything down, or maybe an IT provider that's not quite on the ball, and so you have sort of large clock drift or something that prevents the install, you can reach out to us and we'll help you get it manually installed as well, or at the very least sort of meet the minimum requirements, reapply the most recent BP data update, and you'll be set. And I'll just finish off by saying we have all of our docs online, so docs.haloconnect.io. There's a nice little guide for practices that kind of tell you what you need to know about Halo from a practice perspective, which is not a whole lot. If we do our job well, it should be totally invisible to you. Things should just work. But there is also information there on installation and the minimum requirements. There's a little troubleshooting guide that sort of 99.99% of problems can be fixed by just restarting the service. So there's a nice little guide there with some screenshots. And there's one other concept that I'll just very quickly touch on for any of the more IT savvy people on the call, and that is any practice might end up with multiple servers because they've got a backup running every now and then, so that in case something catastrophic happens, they can restore from the backup. We have a concept where there's only one version of Halo Link that can talk to the database at one time. So even if you end up with multiple installations, essentially there's only one source of truth. And there's a manual intervention that needs to come if you want to switch which one is the source of truth. So we do that when you do a server migrations and things like that. If you clone the server, it gets more complicated, but we deal with all that with your IT provider. There's also a contact us page. Our support line's open during business hours, and you can email us anytime as well. On our website, you can join our mailing list to learn more. You can follow us on LinkedIn. That's the sort of usual plug I'll give, but I might just hand back to Liam at that point.
Yeah, no, look, absolutely. Thank you very much for that overview, Jason. It definitely looks exciting. One thing that I probably should have said at the start of the meeting, if anybody who's on the line, which I can see we've got quite a number of people here today, is keen to ask questions, you'll see that there's a Q&A button at the bottom. You can ask them anonymously. Just jump on and obviously ask those questions. Jason, probably a couple of questions that I just had. One thing I suppose probably just to clarify, so the Halo Connect connector is sort of already shipped with best practice. It's already in the current edition. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, it's been in every data update since June last year.
Yep.
So yeah, we have probably 80–90% of all the best practices already have it installed. There are some that just haven't met the minimum requirements or whatever reason, and we come across them every now and then when an integrator is trying to connect, and we help get it sorted. But yes, the vast majority of sites already have it. The less you need to worry about it, the better, essentially, from our perspective.
Fantastic. And probably my other question that was just sort of in my head, in terms of the pricing model, so obviously probably just worth making clear. So us as an integrator, we obviously had a cost involved in developing and maintaining the connection, and fundamentally, so we obviously pay you, but there's no charge to the practices for the connection. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So best practice don't pay anything for it. As a practice, you don't have to pay anything for it. So yes, third-party integrators pay us for the service. It's a bit of a cost substitute, as Liam said, for the old way. And we hope a better way that's cheaper and more efficient.
No, absolutely. And look, I guess probably what makes me really excited about it, there's obviously the maintenance within just keeping everything running, but there's also the security that you mentioned. So that we'd often have Java files that would have a vulnerability. Suddenly we've got to call up every practice. We're organising team viewer sessions. So obviously you guys are taking care of all of that and making sure it's best practice.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, look, there's been one question that's come in, which is basically asking common integration support. I might, I'm sure David can provide, Jason can provide you a list of all the other providers, but what I might do is just quickly walk you through our integration support, which essentially is RxTro. So what this is, it's a tool for managing your educational meetings and practices. The background to it, look, it was something that I founded nearly 10 years ago. And the background to it is fundamentally what we saw was that primary care practices in general were making time available for meetings with industry. It makes sense. Fundamentally, primary care is the gateway to the health system. So this might be that local physios who are keen to introduce themselves, local specialists that have just started up in the area, the pharmaceutical reps, and so forth. And what we're seeing is that this is sort of happening more and more, particularly as we see new international medical graduates coming in who are keen to obviously engage with the different pieces. So what RxTro is, it's an online tool where fundamentally you can set up your preferences. There's over 4,000 different suppliers, so a lot of the private specialists, all the pharmaceutical companies, and there's even the ability to set up times for in-house CPD-based education. So what this means is, firstly, you get a lot more variety, but importantly, you guys are in control. So it might be a case of you have Tuesdays available for pharmaceutical reps, Fridays available for specialists, and what you might do is at 8 a.m. on the first Tuesday of each month, you might set up a CPD-based activity, and this can be delivered to you in the section. So as I say, really excited to obviously announce this link with Halo Connect. Going forward, there's no team viewer sessions, there's no IT involved. As Jason said, it's a case of ticking the third-party integrator within best practice. It's then just a case of copying the site ID over into the system, syncing the staff, which is all based on the APRA number, and then clicking sync appointments, and fundamentally all of this can flow down into your best practice appointment diary in a really simple case. So the beauty about the system, you can obviously nominate the times that you want to make available. You can make sure that that time that you're allocating, you're getting the most out of it, and then obviously going forward from there. So as I say, really kind of that was the main things to cover off on today. Really happy to sort of open up to further questions. So maybe Jason, other integrators using Halo Connect at this stage?
Yeah, I did throw an answer into the chat as well for anyone who wants it. But there are 8 integrators that currently use Halo in a production environment, which means in the real world and real practices. Cubico is probably the most well known. So you know they're pretty popular, integrate with many practices. And we've got sort of another 20 BP partners who have a staging subscription, like a test subscription, in sort of various stages of testing their integration. Obviously, for some of the bigger ones, it's quite a process to transition everyone over and make sure everything's working well. And there's quite a few of the smaller ones as well that are like, oh, thank God this exists. It's going to make my life much simpler.
Fantastic. Jason, just one other question that's come in. So it's essentially to say, what's the difference between Halo Connect and Halo Link?
Yeah, it is slightly confusing. I guess Halo Connect is sort of the name of the company and sort of overarching name for our products. That sort of encompasses Halo Link, which is the bit of software that sits on the practice server. So if you go to your Windows services in your practices, you're going to see something that says Halo Link service. And then Halo Cloud is kind of the name for our cloud products where our APIs sit and all those kinds of things. So collectively, we couldn't name that all Halo Connect.
Fantastic. And just one other one, which is a good one. So it's basically saying when you're migrating to Halo, so obviously turning off, so obviously current situation, you've probably got 10 different integrations and 10 different pieces of software that are making sure that everything talks to it. Do they need to uninstall the partner software to get migrated to the Halo Link? How does that sort of process work?
Yeah, so I guess an integrator can transition to using Halo without kind of needing the practice to do anything really. There is a bit of an exception to that where they may need to just get you to go into the third-party integration screen and tick a new entry in there. And then really it's up to the third-party integrator sort of when they want that practice to uninstall their old connector. I think just it's probably good practice to make sure that you run both of them concurrently for a week or two, make sure everything's working well before you're asking them to uninstall.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, I can certainly speak from a RxTro perspective in that the process to get switched over is really simple. There's just a change in your options with your online account. Fundamentally, once you've switched over that option, the software that's on the server we won't talk to anymore, but it would be definitely best practice to obviously remove that, just because as it gets older, there might be kind of security standard changes, and that's something that we can just provide guidance to your IT in order to do that one. Fantastic, fantastic. I think that might be the main questions that have come in. In lieu of that, any final comments or closing, Jason?
No, just that we're really, really excited. I think if anyone follows BP on LinkedIn, they'll notice that they've also just integrated an AI tool that helps you do your console notes, and that's connecting via Halo as well. And kind of this is a bit of my passion coming through about being able to see these amazing sort of digital health tools that people have built that really make clinicians' lives easier, and getting them into practices quickly to help clinicians, help practice managers just do the job of healthcare better and easier is fantastic to see. And yeah, the bit I'm most excited about Halo is really that lowering the barrier to entry, getting more integrated tools out there for practices to use.
Yeah, no, look, and I'll just add to that as well, Jason, I completely agree. I mean, when we look at kind of modern software development, it's sort of what's the core functionality, and then you've got your marketplaces and so forth. I think you guys have obviously enabled that for best practice and ZMed now as well. So essentially, and obviously more to come. So yeah, look, I'm really looking forward to obviously, a more diverse marketplace and streamlined communication. I think it's going to be really exciting into the future. Well, look, as I say, really good. Oh, thank you very much for the great work, guys, came through with the question. But yeah, look, thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I know that primary care practices jumping on a webinar for 20 minutes, every minute is valuable at the moment. So look, thank you very much for jumping on and taking the time today to hear about the updates.
Thanks so much, everyone, and thanks, Liam.